Hello, beautiful community. Let's make a quick comment on allegedly Putin's daughters appearing at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. We don't really need to use the word allegedly there. I'd put it into this kind of context. You and I have talked about transition of power in several different senses. And this is one more sense of transition of power to think about. We've talked about it in this banal sense that for years before the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, folks of the slightly younger generation in the Putin regime would have obviously been asking themselves questions: how do I want to position myself when the transition of power occurs? Then there is the less banal sense of this process that Putin has been engaging in of outsourcing power to his circle, watching them engage in conflicts over that power he has outsourced, and then coming in and refereeing these conflicts. And the feeling that he eventually developed was that he had ceded too much power in this dynamic and he needed to take some power back. And one way of doing that was to start a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Now, that's not the central reason for the war. It's, however, an important part of a conversation about the regime security causes of war, which are going to be more complex and more multiple. More recently, you and I on the main channel, in the last video on the main channel, have talked about another kind of transition of power. In the case of Shoigu being moved, Belousov being brought in. And there we talked about Putin and the regime slowly beginning to get themselves into the kind of shape and constellation they want to be in when it's end game time. And I'm not saying that it's end game time now or soon, but I'm saying that clearly the regime is beginning to reshuffle itself toward taking the kind of shape that it wants to be in when endgame time comes, whether that's through Putin's biology or through political events. And of course, if you haven't seen that main channel video, it's worth watching because that analysis is very important. We're going to be witnessing more and more of this sort of reshuffling. Now we're seeing another form of transition. And that's power being shifted and money and property being shifted. You can't separate the two properly in Russia from the older generation who are in power to their kids and to their grandkids. Now, seeing, as Putin calls them, these women, right? He doesn't formally acknowledge his relation to them in public is not new. They have been a bit more prominent recently, but it's perhaps a formalization of their new propensity to, appear in public and have a public presence. So, if you like, it's the public continuation of a process that was already going on before, less visibly, but you could sense it if you paid attention carefully. Part of this is getting society used to seeing particular faces and normalizing that. But it's important to understand that this is a ubiquitous process. So when we're talking about Putin's kids, when we're talking about Shoigu's daughter who was there, you can sort of multiply that by thousands, right? They are sort of emblematic of this process going on more widely. I suppose there are two sort of buckets we might reflect on here, particularly when we're talking about Putin's children. Is this about giving them a certain degree of power and security for their preservation and their sustenance. That's bucket one. Bucket two, is it about giving them power in Russia, giving them power over the country in some significant respect, right? And we have no idea about where this story is going, so it's going to be worth following. But this business of a generational transit is not new, but perhaps newly public. And we're going to have to be talking about it quite a bit. Thank you so much for being with me. Now, quick announcement about the next main channel video. It's unfortunately had to be delayed because I've had a bit of a health crash trying to make progress with it. I looked at it and I thought that it was such an important topic, Russian propaganda in the West. And I was so satisfied with at least most of the things I said in the video that it's worth taking my time with it. And so the release date is now Sunday early evening, next Sunday, which is a few days from now. Look out for it. I'll be putting out some community posts advertising it, and again, I'm hoping that come mid-June, can't vouch for my health, but certainly some of the medical tests and procedures I'm doing will hopefully be winding down that, and then I'll be with you a little bit more. Thank you. Lots of love. See you soon.